Well, hello, everyone. I hope everyone is well. Happy Monday. And I have a small announcement to make that our very good friend Jörg Vogel, that was going to join us today on Create with Maxon, unfortunately, for because of unforeseen circumstances, he won't be able to be with us. But he will do the next show and the one after that. So, first of all, I'm going to say some hellos to my friends Sharon and Hannah. How are you? The quick sound check, can you hear me? And a quick reply. Hello, if anyone can hear me. There's a 10-second lag, so I'm just going to wait a bit just in case I start the show and there's no audio. Yep, excellent. So you can hear me. And in any case, today, right after the housekeeping I'm going to do, we are going to talk about general tips and tricks for landscaping and populating your scenes with various objects. And it's mainly aimed at architectural visualization, but that doesn't mean you can use it anywhere else you want. So yeah, let me go through the housekeeping and let me bring up this. There we go. So first of all, I'm going to post some links in the general chat as well. And if you want to go to this page, which pretty much has all the important links, including the ask the trainer links and all that, you have to click. Let me post it here on this link over here. Excellent. Just making sure it's been posted. I'm alone today, so I promise I'm going to mess up a bit. So this will give you all the links to where you can go to the various shows and ask your questions, and the various Maxon events and the training team YouTube channel and the certification and university and all that. So this is pretty much the only link you need. But in any case, it will take you to the Maxon events page that shows all the upcoming shows. And of course, to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel that hosts a ton of tutorials for you to learn and enjoy, including the quick tips and all the shows that we do live, although they're both they're streamed on both our channels, the Maxon YouTube channel and the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. It's only the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel that has them recorded, including timestamps and comments provided by our very good friend and mentor, Dr. Sassy. And since you're on the Maxon YouTube channels, just go and learn ZBrush. If you have any artistic inclination, I promise you your life is going to change uh, towards the positive. And to because of our appreciation for joining our shows and hanging out with us, you can go to the link provided over here, somewhere around here. There's the T-shirt link, Maxon Events Training Team. Where is that T-shirt link? Is it not here? Oh, well, I'll post it then. So give me a second. Let me see. Where is it? Do. There we go. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go and paste it in the general chat. And for this month, the code for August, the code is House of Polygons, or uppercase, no spaces. And you can claim your free T-shirt, and you only pay for postage and packaging and folding and ironing and all that nice stuff. And finally, you can go to Cineversity and watch hundreds or maybe thousands of high quality tutorials. And because we're migrating the content from the old one to the new one, what you could do to help us do that, I have here a little link for you. If there are any tutorials which you would like us to prioritize, if we can, terms and conditions apply, please go to this link and fill it with the tutorial you would like to see. And this university team is doing a great job migrating. So let's see if I forgot anything here. Yeah, a couple of procedural things. If you do have a question, please preface it with capitalized question so that I can distinguish it in the comment section. And a few more things. Our fantastic guest today, which is not here, go to their website and check out their work. Maybe it's good to do some homework before. And Fuchs and Vogel, besides being extremely cool people, it's a small studio that creates amazing stuff for all sorts of industries, and including architectural stuff. So you can go to the work and click on architecture, and you see these mind-blowingly beautiful, you know, 3D compositions here. Look at that. Anyway, I'm not going to take up more of your time with this. Now you can look at me. Excuse me. So let me check and see if there are any comments around here. I'm saying hi to everyone. I'm not going to go through one by one. I'm sending love back to Sweden. Someone sends me love. I reciprocate, right? Excellent. So nothing from in the question. So let's begin. Let me just close a window here. I've got a blank screen, and I'm going to bring up my Cinema 4D scene, and I'm going to go through my list on one of my many monitors over here. So the first thing I'd like to advise you to do if you are doing landscaping or set dressing or want to populate your scenes with various objects, live or inanimate objects, trees and stuff like that, go and check out Cinema 4D's Asset Manager. Now you have trees, you have all sorts of things, but I have a tip. If you type something and the word redshift, it will give you the appropriate assets, in this case, models or scenes and so forth. And you can see when I move my mouse over here, they have this little redshift logo. And that means that they have redshift materials and they're ready to render directly with redshift. Because we do have other objects like these over here, which haven't been migrated yet, but you can still use them. All you have to do is apply new materials or change the materials, but you can use the models without any problem. And in some cases, even the standard materials are going to translate fairly okay, but I do advise that you put some extra work. But adding a second word, redshift, or, and here's a little tip, if you click this little button here that has that bottom bar, and let's select this. If you bring this up and look down here, one of the things you will see is in the keywords tab, you have other kinds of information as well, the size of the models, the dependencies and whatnot, and these are all the textures and materials and so forth. You see all these keywords, and these are the keywords which, if you type here, the objects that have these keywords are going to come up, or materials and so forth. So you can go and add your own, or you can search by these. And this is to help you understand which words are included in the search for whatever object we have here. So, yeah, excellent. That was a little tip over here. So let's begin. I'm going to check the text as we're going forwards. Now, the the other thing, just to make things, and in case you missed it, so make sure that you're in the right category. Okay, so if I go to all or media, if you type HDR, it's going to give you quite a few images here. Since a couple of versions ago, if you drag any image from the asset manager into your object manager, it will automatically create a dome light for you and populate it with the appropriate texture. So a multi-click process now is just a single drag process. So it's very helpful if you want to do that. Now, another thing, which actually I'm going to get to it slightly. Well, I'm actually going to do it now. Let's go and get a tree, right? So tree and Redshift, because I want it to have Redshift, but I need it to be a model, right? Not a media. And if you grab any of these into your object manager, not only it will download it and include it in your scene, it automatically goes, let me close this, to your placement tool. Now, for anyone that doesn't know what the placement tool does, let me quickly show you a couple of tricks. And now let me undo that and get rid of that. I have a little scene, not this one or this one, this one. And what I've done here, I've got a frame. And this is just an object here. And I have another object, which is just a procedural object. And it's just easy to see. So if you get your placement tool, this one over here, the place tool, and you see that little purple gizmo, based on the settings, you can just click on an object and it will place it based on the settings you have here. And this allows you for very quick population of various things. You can add rocks, you can add all sorts of things. So you can move this around. If you press shift while you've got your mouse pressed, you can scale it. And also you can press control to drag it and make a copy. And the copy is either going to be a full object like this one, a mesh object, or an instance, or a render instance. So it's up to you to decide what kind of object it's going to be. And this makes it extremely fast. Press shift, drag, move it around a bit, press control, bring it over here, tumble around, press shift, make it smaller. Maybe you want to rotate it. You just drag that little thing, control, put it here, press shift, make it smaller, control, control, control. And you shouldn't have to worry about placing it accurately because it uses the bounding box and the orientation to do this. So this is, I would say, the first way, the first method by which you would go and start placing objects in your scene, populating your scene with whatever you like. And yeah, if you have any questions about the tool, just select it and go anywhere here in the attribute manager, right click and go and show help. And this will bring up the online help and will give you, why didn't the online help come up? Show help. There you go. And it will give you all the information you want with the buttons and what everything does. So it's a fairly easy tool to use. So let me quickly go and see if we have any questions. Um, let's try this. I'm going to put it up. Does this automatically dome creation only work for Redshift or is it render engine dependable? As far as I know, it's, oh, that's actually a good question. Wait, let's test it out. Okay, I'm not going to reply until I test it out. So here we have Redshift render, right? And let me go and type HDR, and make sure we are in media or all. And let's go and set our renderer to standard. What's going to happen if I do a standard? Oh, it doesn't allow me. So apparently it's something maybe the render engines need to implement, but it hasn't been implemented for standard render. So the answer is, as far as I can tell, it's Redshift only, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's something that the other render engines can also apply in their plugins. Excellent. Let's see. Okay, so let's move to the second thing I want to talk about. Don't forget, you can always place things uh, in a manual way, but I'm not going to get into that, right? Don't forget that we still have the ability to use move, scale, rotation tool. We can activate snapping to snap it in certain places and stuff like that. You can go to your snapping settings and activate whatever settings you want and so forth. So we do have a bunch of tools that can do these things for you. But now I'm going to talk about the dynamic place because I find it very helpful when you're doing stuff that don't need a lot of structure, like placing frames on a wall, but you want something to look a bit more natural. And here I've got a landscape object, your typical landscape primitive, and a bunch of stones, which I got from the asset manager. And I'm going to select them all. And I'm going to get this little one here, the dynamic placement tool. And if it does some sort of analysis of the scene because it needs to find out which objects are selected, create their bounding boxes, find their centers, and then identify all the other objects in the scene. And from this point onwards, we can just start dragging this around, right? And you can see that everything moves in a dynamic way to the point where if I bring it to the surface, it creates this collision. So you can just drop these over here. Not only that, you actually have the ability using this complex gizmo. When I say complex, compound gizmo, I should say, wrong word. You can actually rotate them, and there's always, dynamics. You can drag this little thing to bring them together, and you can bring them in only in one axis or only in one other axis, or move them in a particular axis. And the other thing is, if you press shift before you click anything and you drag this, when you release the mouse button, they just fall. So this way you can just drop things, and the minute you release the shift button, then they stop their animation. So everything's up here. I'm going to go and drag this to bring them close. I'm pressing shift and then I'm clicking. I've got the mouse clicked, and the moment I release the shift, sorry, there you go. They just stop moving. So you can experiment with this and move things around until they sort of fall where you want them to. So press shift, move this, they'll fall, release shift, and this could be what you want. And you can even change some of the parameters like the gravity and the friction and the bounciness and so forth. So if you want to populate various things, it's an ideal way to do it because it allows you for this sort of chaotic placement. So shift, click and drag, release shift, and now they're over there. And I can continue now, sort of rolling them down. Um, I find that hilarious. I don't know if you can animate this because this could be a story, a way to make animations. Anyhow, I digress. So the dynamic placement tool is a good tool to place massive things, a massive number of things when you want them chaotic, and pebbles and stones and all that. So let me see. There's a question here by um, is Spider-Man? It's like Spider-Man, right? Can you make a tree interact with a wall so that the leaves do not pass through? The answer is no, not directly as you would expect it. So I assume the expectation is that you get a tree and you drag your tree in here. Let's get, I'm going to go redshift because why not? You get your tree here. You can see it's quite heavy. It's got stuff. And you want to move it against some sort of wall. And all these trees have a level of detail. The way I go about it, you can always go and change the level. So it has full and proxy. It has these two levels. This is the full. But I like to go and say current state to object and just delete the previous one and just use this. To move this, I guess the expectation is if I have a cube over here, is there a way to move the tree in a way that it's going to not intersect the cube? And the answer is directly no. There could be ways to do it using deformations and all that, uh, but you either have to make this up of multiple colliders and multiple connectors and stuff like that, which I would guess to a certain degree is doable. But directly like this, an automated tool does not exist. If it does, someone please let me know because I'm going to learn something. But unfortunately, that's the answer I have. And a very good hi to Dushan, my friend. We were doing the podcast, the show last week together. How are you, my friend? And please post anything if you see me doing anything wrong. Excellent. So back to my full screen, and let's take a look at something a bit more complex, but a bit more interesting. And I like to use MoGraph for the majority of things. One of them is populating with various things. Let me show you a few ways you can do that. I think I've got something already made here using MoGraph and all sorts of things. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to generate various types of distribution. And some tips I use, which are quite general when it comes to distributing stuff. So let's go and grab a few things, right? There you go. These four trees, when you grab more than one, just right click and say load, and they will appear in your object manager one by one. And it's downloading live. Now, again, because this is what I like to do, just select them all, right click and say current state to object, then delete these, then select the nulls, and then say delete without children from here. And this will delete all the parents and get rid of the nulls, in case you didn't know that. So we have these trees on top of each other, right? And let's go and distribute them in a certain way. So first of all, we need some sort of ground plane. Just create a plane, and let's make it quite large. Let's say 150 meters by 150 meters. In case you didn't know, you can type whatever your unit is after the number, and it will do the automatic conversion to whatever unit you have set. So you can type in 6 feet, and it will convert it into uh, 1 meter 81 or something like that, 182. So we have this plane, and we're going to use this plane to distribute some trees on it. So let's create a cloner. When you're distributing objects that have quite a few polygons, if I press Control I, my scene has over 1.2 million polygons. So these are fairly detailed objects here. You can always go to your grow shading lines and see, each leaf is a separate object. It's got a alpha channel and so forth, but there's quite a few polygons in this scene over here. So make sure that your cloner is set to multi-instance. If you're not going to do any blending or with MoGraph in blend mode, multi-instance is the best way to go about distributing a lot of objects. So let's take all these and put them in here. And let's set this to be in object mode. Drag your plane in here, and you will see they're lying on the floor because the normal direction of the object you are cloning, the plane, will align with the plus z of whatever the object is. And you can see their z is that away. So the easiest way to fix this is to go to the cloner's transform, and I think it's minus 90 in this one, in this particular case, but the method that never fails, the noseman method for this is you go to this, you go like that, and you say no, you undo. Then you go to the one you think is your second guess, which is never the right one. You go this way and you say no, and then you go to the third one and you turn it the wrong way, and then you say, now I know that it's minus 90. This is my life, just to let you know. This is what happens all the time. And now we have these trees that are distributed here, right? Now, depending on the density you want, you should always remember that although you are using multi-instances, and as far as I know, upon render time, Redshift is going to convert these into Redshift instances. So it's fairly fast, but yet you can end up, if you start increasing your tree count, with many a million polygons, right? So there are going to be certain delays. Let's say we have 500 trees. Okay, let me see if this shows us. All right, it won't increase here because these are instances. I'm not going to change this to instance because things are going to slow down. There you go. So we have our nice little trees. A couple of things you need to remember about these trees is that they're all oriented in exactly the same direction. So the trees, this one is the same as this one. You can see the same orientation is the same as this one, the same orientation. You can see these little things. So always add a bit of randomness. The distribution itself, the surface distribution, has its own randomness, which you can change using the seed. But if you wanted to create additional randomization, it's good to go to your cloner and add a random effector, which preferably is going to be in the rotation, just to rotate them. And it's always the first. See, they made it for me. Make the first one just work. And now it's going to have a randomness between 0 and 360. So all the rotations are pretty much random. Now you can always go and add a bit of tilt to the trees if you want to. It's up to you, but you do have this ability. Now, if they were in a grid, you could also go and add randomness in X, Y, and Z, or sorry, X and Z, because Y is up and down. But in any case, in this case, we just need a bit of rotation and a bit of scale. So let's go to uniform scale and give it a little bit of this. Excellent. Now, there are other considerations. You may find that certain trees overlap where you don't want them to. And there's no easy way to say, well, easy way. There are ways to go about it if you wish. You can go and delete a specific clone. So let's start with that. Let's assume that for some reason, let's find something that's plausibly going to cause problems. Like some trees, when they're too close together, it happens in my backyard, they don't like it. And one of the two trees passes away. So, okay, we got this thing here. I don't want this one. So select your cloner, and you can go to your MoGraph selection and select this. There you go. That little orange dot is the selection now. And with the cloner selected and the MoGraph selection selected, you can always go and hide this. You can say hide selected. And this is just going to add a plane effector, and it's going to feed it with that MoGraph selection. So you can go and add more trees to that, because now it's nice and set. You can say, well, I don't want select the cloner always. I don't want this one. You need to press shift. I don't want this one, or control. I want this one now. I've changed my mind. Press shift. And you can get rid, once you do the initial setup, you can just go in and say, okay, let's get rid of these trees, middle mouse and drag to make it bigger. And let's get rid of these trees and get rid of these trees. And you can open up a path where you're going to make your road, for example. So it's a fairly easy way to go about doing things. Okay. Now, oops, undo, shift. I was pressing control. There you go. So let's say these are my trees, and I'm checking my notes. Checking notes. Now, a similar thing you could do, and let's use another kind of plant thing. Let's get some of these bushes here. I'm going to get these two, just these two. Oh no, palm tree and pine trees. See, don't do that. That's only in botanical gardens and stuff like that. Just don't do that. Right click and load. So we're going to load those two. But what I'm going to do now is slightly different. I want to clone these. So select them, select these two, press shift. Oops. Forget what I just said. Select them, right click, current state object, press shift. My lord. Select these and say delete without children. There you go. So we have these two, and I'm going to get another cloner and just drag them in, set it to multi-instance before you do anything else. And I'm going to set this to object. But the object, so to speak, I'm going to use this time, I'm going to use a separate one. Again, let's make it another plane, and let's sort of scale it up. So there's a patch of our garden that has these little trees here. Let's put it here for now. And let's make it editable. And you can go and select some polygons. Let me close this. Let's go here and select some polygons. So there you go. Here's my polygon selection here and here. And what I want to do is store that selection. So I'm storing that selection on the polygon. And the cloner actually gives us the ability to not only clone on objects, but on selections as well. So it's going to clone on the object, but it's going to use the selection. So you can see that these trees are going to be populated in that area of the selection. Look at that. So using selections is another way of doing things in an interesting way. Now you can see we have this second patch here, and don't forget that we don't necessarily need to render that second ground. This is just the control object that allows us to place things on it. So this now is a mobile tree platform where you can create your little patches of woods with the different trees and so forth and just move them around. And it's fairly fast because of the multi instances. Now, if you press T and you scale this, it's actually not the trees that are scaling down, it's the area you are um, doing the cloning. So this becomes a fairly interesting way of cloning stuff and um, creating some sort of variety. Now, having said that, let me call this excellent and call this trees because I guarantee I'm going to get confused at a certain point. For the bushes, another thing you could do, and before you do that, here's a little tip. If you open up this and look at the object dimensions, you can see that the largest dimension is 532. It's the height, so I'm good with that. But the two horizontal and width and depth is around 500. Okay, the biggest one is 500, and for this one it's 499 for 500. If you take this and you add from the MoGraph, not the character, a push apart effector, it uses the size of the object, so you can grow this to 500. And this will guarantee that no object is going to overlap. Of course, it's going to create these quite homogeneous distributions. And of course, don't forget, see now you can see they're all aligned. They're all because all the tree models are the same. So go to random, do the same thing you did before, go to your not scale rotation and change this to 360. And now you can add a bit of X and Y and Z just to break them up. Look at that. Look at the difference between leaving them like this, they all look, pretty much same distance. And then you do this, and this looks more like an orchard. Right? There you go. And depending on the angle, I need to randomize their height. This is creeping me out. Uniform scale, do that. There you go. Different trees. Done. And the other thing I'd like to do without dealing with clones is make sure you have a plausible camera view. Of course, you can have a drone shot like this, but usually if you're on ground level and you want the visual to be similar to real life, go create your camera. And what you should do is make sure that your camera is around, let's say, 5.5 feet. There you go. So now the camera is down there. Before you do anything else, so 167 or something like that, let's make this person taller. 175 are the eyes. Go to this camera, right click, go to rigging, and protect, not the scale. I don't care. I'm not going to scale it, or the rotation. Protect just the Y height. So what happens now is I can move the camera around. You can see I can rotate it, but the camera will never rise above those 5 and something feet. So this is very similar to holding a camera and just moving around. Whatever I'm doing here is always from the point of view of 1 meter 70 something. All right, so this allows you to quickly navigate. It becomes a bit odd because sometimes you think you can move up and down. I'm pressing 1 now. You can't because we're not allowing that. But it makes it very easy for you to frame your camera by retaining the where your camera needs to be, because this is a human. And I read somewhere, and this is a cry for help to Dr. Sassy. I heard that a lot of architectural visualizations use 24 millimeter lenses. And I would love to know if this is true or not, or if anyone knows, can you please post if you do any architectural visualization, if it's around 24. So that will mean a wider lens. And wider, I just read it randomly on YouTube. So don't believe what you read on YouTube. But in any case, so so we have the point of view, we have sort of the moving around, but Dushan replies, let's put this up. 24 millimeters is very common. Thank you very much. Ha. So the other things you need to do is make sure your terrain is, what represents what you're doing here. It's unlikely, unless you're in, I don't know, Hyde Park in London, that the ground is totally flat, or Wimbledon or something, if you plant some trees in the tennis courts. Anyhow, um, and adding noises and all that, and deformations, or modeling in ZBrush, as we've seen other artists do, is not a bad practice per se. But sometimes what you could do is just add secondary objects that break this very flat sort of horizon we see here. So let's do something like that. Uh, I like using the landscape object. Just scale it up. So this is a meter high. Let's make it 2 meters high, and let's make it, I don't know, 30 meters by 30 meters. And if I want it even bigger, I can make it bigger. There you go. So we're getting this little mound here. You can lock the Y as well. Another way to work, if you don't want to leave the camera and go to other views, just lock your Y, and then you can just move it around, and you can create, these little mounds that break up the uniformity of the ground. And you can use materials to blend them together, and with the appropriate projections and so forth. And the same thing is, let's call this a mound, and let's call this mount. You see what I did there? It's a mountain. And let's find our camera. The camera is here, that little uh, blob over there. And oh, the other thing I like to do, which is a performance tip, select the cloners that have multi-instances. And instead of looking at all the polygons, because although the rendering is going to be much faster, the viewport representation is still showing us all the polygons, right? And you can see I'm getting these zoom out slowdowns. No worries. Go to viewport mode and set this to bounding box. And now look at that. Whee! Sorry if anyone has issues with these flashes. I didn't mean to do that. And yeah, uh, just change it to bounding box, and you will navigate things faster. So mount. Now let's move the mount right there at the back. If you want to have physical depth of field and all that, maybe you should send it a couple of kilometers back, but depending on what you're doing, you don't have to do that, and just make it big. Now I'm looking here while I'm making it big to see when it's going to show up. Good. Let's move it back now. Fantastic. And make it even bigger. I want to make it big, big, big. Now, because I'm looking up, I won't be able to see much of it, right? Don't forget, I'm looking upwards, so it's sort of vanishing the horizon. So I could do something like this and find a little gap here, and then go to your mount and grow it. Large numbers, there you go. And you can play around with the rough furrows and make it a bit more rough, and you can increase your width and height segments and all that. But now we have this massive background, which allows the whole thing to sort of tie in. Now, having said that, when I was in London, England, or when I was in Toronto, there was nothing higher than a mushroom. So this applies to places where mountains exist. And if you don't know what mountains are, you can always Google it. So now we have this sort of composition here. Oh, Eunice said 14 or 16 millimeter lenses. Let's try this. Not bad. So wider lens. Okay, I'm learning something today. That's why I'm doing these live streams, so I can learn stuff. Okay, so let's now take a look at what we've done here. I'm just curious. It's going to look very plasticky and silly, but I'm going to check it out anyway. So Redshift layout. This is from my previous test, and let's just close these, and let's just go here and drag an HDR. And I didn't type it properly, HDR. And let's go and find something, I don't know. Shall we make it an evening light scene? What shall we do here? Or shall we find something else? I'm going to get this. I don't care. And let's close this, and let's press start, whatever that's doing. Give it a few seconds. Oh, look at that. We have some trees in the background. Let's just go to the background over here and make sure it's not visible. Or a few things you can do depending on where the sun is. You can sort of rotate it around, find out what you want, and then you can sort of hide this and bring up the sky and oh, Inception. We anyway, even better, just hide the background. Let's hide the background. Or you can add on top of this a sun and sky rig. Dushan last week showed us how to use it. He was using it, and the only difference is that his visuals look really nice. Mine don't look really nice. But hey, no one's counting, right? No one's commenting. Thank you very much for that. And so you can just populate things and create your little mounds. Another thing I would do with a mound over here, because I find it's quite fascinating, is go grow some hair on it. And when I'm doing computationally intensive tasks, I turn off Redshift. I don't want to bottleneck my computer with data moving from the CPU to the GPU and so forth. So with a mound selected, go to simulate and go to hair objects and add some hair, right? They're going to appear somewhere here. So if I press Control on my keyboard or Command on the Mac, and I click on the hamburger, it folds the palette over here. Look, it says Redshift render view. So this is a temporary way to close and open things. So Control, close this. Maybe I don't want something else, anything that has this little burger icon. So now I've created these hairs. Oh, the other thing is switch out of your camera so you can work properly. So we have these little hairs over here. And what I'm going to do is make sure that we have quite a few of them. So 50,000, not going to be good. I'm going to go 500,000, maybe even more. Reduce, if this is some sort of background, not hero element, you can reduce the segments to something like 4 because it's going to be quite far away. And, 4 segments for something that will render over a few pixels. Look how small these are going to be. It will look fine. And the next thing is go to the material. And for grass, number one, frizz and kink. It just makes things look a bit more frizzy and kinky. I don't like specular for grass, although there's always a certain amount. And just go to the color and I don't know, select the color. One thing with the color, which I always remind people, depending on where you're choosing your colors, if it's the new palette, just make sure that you use the you use the non-linear workflow color. Anyhow, in this case, I'm just going to convert this to green and this to green. So let's assume this is my grass. There we go. And we have our material, we have all that. The other thing that Dujan showed us last week is the importance of having some depth of field, and it just and he was you have to watch the show if you haven't watched it. It's absolutely brilliant because it shows how to create beautiful bokeh and all that, how to use them actually. Optical bokeh, and for this, I don't know. It's a sunny day. I'm going to set it to 5. And again, apologies to all you artists which see me doing these things. And there we go. So let's open up Redshift and let's just start this and see what happens. It always takes a bit of time to extract the hair into the actual objects that are going to be used in the renderer. So this may take a few seconds to get it going. And do 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 do. There you go. So now we have a patch over here with grass, which of course you can make a selection on this, or you can taper it out using material or something like that. So you can start populating your scene. And this grass is too tall. So turn this off, go to guides, and I don't want it to be a meter. I'm going to make it just 15 centimeters. And I assume that I've done this in a scale. The trees and many of the all of the architectural aligned objects are proper proportions, as you would see. So the trees are tall and all that nice stuff. Let's go. There you go. So that little patch has its grass over here, and you can compensate with materials and all that good stuff. So let me quickly check for a couple of questions here. There we go. Now, let's see. Reading here. The Noseman method. Change all the numbers, and it's always the last one. And you know something, right? It's scientifically proven. People have written peer-reviewed papers that if you want to outsmart the system and start with a third one, it's not going to be that. Then it's going to be the first one. It's always the last one you choose. It's the universe is a mystery. I think it has to do with quantum something. Um, let's see. Yeah. See, I'm telling you, this is real life, right? Brian is saying, yep. Okay. Halal Studio, are these Redshift materials? I had problems if I convert them to Redshift, it doesn't work properly. Yeah, you can never get a full translation. These are two different systems. You may get some components that translate well to a certain degree, but my advice is use the assets from the materials, like the general values and the textures, and see the noises, because standard cinema 4D noises are not exactly the same as Redshift noises, because the CPU and the GPU calculate things rather differently. So it comes, I think, down to randomization and so forth. So the ones that don't have the little red dots there, so models and tree, these ones here that don't have the Redshift logo, you will have to go and convert the materials. So I apologize for that, but that's what you need to do. Okay, let's see. What sunny day is F16 or higher? Okay, okay. Or you use one of those filters, right? If you want to have a depth of field and all that. I know a few things. I know a few things. Excellent. So um, let's see here. Alfredo Gonzalez. Um, is there a way to get the camera to 2-point perspective? Well, 2-point perspective. Uh, 2-point. I think 2-point. Oh, that's an interesting one. Let's see. Let's go in another document here. I don't think we have 2-point perspective here. I'm going to try with Cinema 4D standard camera first, right? For reasons. So standard camera, we have certain projection types. We have parallel. This is orthographic, so there's no perspective. Left, right, military. So no, that's military. So frog, we can't rotate. So these are orthographic. Bird. Now anything you can't rotate, I'm pressing this. Anything that doesn't rotate is orthographic. Gentleman. Gentleman, no. I and dimetric, isometric, and dimetric. We don't. I don't know if it's possible. I have no idea. Right. So maybe there is a way. Let's try the redshift camera, because why not? I don't think so. So we have fisheye, spherical, cylindrical. Yeah. Isometric and dimetric here. Press H. No. So 2-point perspective, no. Now, having said, is it physically plausible to have only, or is it just that what I'm thinking here is that 2-point perspective may be just a way to draw things, right? Um, yeah, that's actually a good one. Google it and see if anyone else can do it, because otherwise it may not be. It says 1-point or 2-point perspective happens based on where you put the camera. Yes, but will you have scaling along the y-axis? That Amira posted this. That is the question, because here, whatever is further will tend. So if you're looking forwards, in theory, you won't get perspective upwards. So it becomes a quasi 2-point perspective. So maybe that's the concession, that if you're forcing, sorry, if you're facing forwards towards the horizon, then anything that's placed on the plus y is by definition uh, parallel. That means you have 2 point, the equivalent to 2 point. Huh. Sorry, this is going a bit um, wibbly wobbly, but I want to test this. I find these things intriguing here. So let's take these two things. Let's put the camera right in the middle of the world. So it's on the, and just move it back now. There we go. Tilt it right on the horizon and look through it. Well, it appears that despite how far back we go, these two are always going to be parallel. When we start looking, so it's the tilt. If I tilt this, we're getting perspective. Oh, come on. Click, there you go. We're getting perspective because the one is further than the other, and we're getting perspective. But if your camera is placed right at the, you're facing the horizon, and the dimension that's perpendicular doesn't have perspective. So this is essentially a 2 point perspective. Anyhow, that's what I have on this. I may be totally wrong, but hey, good. Let's see what else we have here. Any questions? There you go. Cubic. Many frames of cubics shining at 1 point perspective. Yep. Sort of. These could make sense. Ground level. Yep. And longer lens is the natural way. Excellent. So let me go down my list. I'm checking to see if there are any other questions. No. And what do I have on my? Oh, let's see. We have landscape object. We have the hair. We have sun and sky rig. Oh, I didn't compensate this with the sun and sky rig. I got totally sidetracked. So you can use composite lighting. You don't need to use a one specific natural source of lighting, right? You don't need to do that. It all comes down to what you want to make and how you want it to look. Using 100% physical renders is for people like me that have no idea what they want to do. Let me get rid of the hair over here so it goes a bit faster. And I do have the sun and sky rig, so I did show you this. I showed it and I forgot. But generally speaking, a couple of things you can do to identify in the redshift sky. You can actually, let me get rid of the camera here. So if you go to the redshift sky here, you will see there is a sun object and you can see the direction it's coming from. There's a little trick I showed a while ago. If you want to identify where the light is coming from using an HDR. So let's assume this is your scene and you want to enhance, enhance. The first one that posts where that's from, I have nothing to give, but it will be funny. Enhance. So we have this background image here, and I want to identify the direction by which the light is coming from. Because when we're using a spherical panorama, a 360, the direction is the only thing we care about. It's not the position, right? Especially with the sun, right? So we've got our camera. Let's turn everything off. And we only have this dome light here. And let's create a redshift camera, or any camera for that matter. Let's go and place it in the middle of our world. Won't make a huge difference, but I'm going to place it there anyway. And now you go to cameras and you use camera mode, because I want to pivot my camera around its axis when I'm navigating, right? I don't want to pivot around the object. No one got that joke about enhance. Okay. Let's go and find the sun, where the sun is coming from. I feel I was, oh yeah, there was the trees. I didn't turn off everything. That's why I couldn't find. Let me turn all these off. There we go. Go back to my camera, zero it out. I was wondering why I couldn't see the sky. I was seeing the inside of the tree. So I'm using the camera navigation, camera mode. So I'm pivoting around the camera, and go and look at the sun. Don't do this in a proper scenario physically. You're going to burn your eyes. And bring the exposure down until you find where the sun is. Right, you can do this over here, and undo, and let's do this again. Now I'm going to click here, and I'm going to navigate until I get this over my crosshairs. There you go. So my camera now is looking at the sun from the center of my world. And what this means is that this camera orientation now, and I can go and turn everything back on, turn all these and turn all these on, and so forth. So what I've got here is I've got a camera orientation, this little camera here. If I can go and find it. I think I've zoomed out too much here. Let me go. If that happens to you, oh yeah, I forgot my camera navigation in camera mode. So I was messing up. And go to frame default, and this will bring you pretty much where the scene starts. So this camera here is showing me where the sun is coming from. This is the direction. So what I can do here is get a redshift infinite light and make it a child. So it assumes the rotation and or all the stuff that this camera has. So now I can take this out. I can rotate this 180 degrees around its y-axis. And now this light here is actually shining light on my scene that's coming from exactly the same position as my dome light. And I can make it a child because maybe I want to change things around and go back to my other camera. So you can enhance what your lighting, the one you use your HDR with. Um, you can enhance it by adding an infinite light from the same exact position. Let's see if this worked. Go click the button. Good. And where's my dome light? Yep. Remember, I did the exposure so I could look at the sun. And here I have an extra object that gives me shadows in the same exact direction, because that's the objective of having it coming from the proper direction. So yeah, that's a way of defining the direction of the light. So you can, light your scene accordingly and have a bit more flexibility with this. And don't forget, you can add more and more mountains and create a larger sense of depth. Now, having said that, let me bring something up because I feel that. So, where I get some of my footage is Artlist. And what I'd like to do is go look at real images and find out, sorry, find out what is that thing that makes the image look in a certain way, or if I can put it better, which part of the composition or the lighting is important to bring out a certain emotion. Because the more, if you want something to be impactful, it has to appeal to people's emotions. So find this, for example, here. Now, of course, this is a movie, but you can always, I guess, pause it. There you go. So what makes this? Is it the color? Is it the graininess? Is it the fact that it's projected on a CRT? There's something about this image. Or is it the landscape itself? Is it, the end of summer, the wheat has been harvested, the tree is going a bit yellowish and so forth? Is it that? Because if you identify that it's this, the end of summer um, emotion that makes this feel you in a certain way, if it makes you feel in a certain way, then if you want to portray this emotion within your architecture, uh, make it late summer, so it's as simple as that. But always make sure that you look at references, not only exact references you're looking at, but things that are tangential. You're going to pick up a lot of information doing that. This is extremely boring. Anyway, there is something flying around. It's a bird. So this is what I want to show here. So let me close this and go back to a final little technique I want to show, which has to do with sometimes, and this is something I see. I'm going to get these trees here, copy it. I see this quite often here where I live. It's where people planted trees in rows. So you see these fir trees or pine trees or otherwise naturally growing trees, but they grow in rows, but they're never perfect, but they're still rows and columns. So um, a couple of proposals on how you can do something like that so that it's procedural. Yep, Francesco gets it. Okay. So here's a way. Here's a way for you to do this. I'm going to get. I'm going to use a combination of things. I'm going to start with a plane. I'm going to make it 100 by 100 meters. So that's 10,000 centimeters. And I'm going to put 100 segments here. And I'm going to go and add, just to make it a bit more interesting, I'm going to go and add the wrong shortcut, a noise as a deformation here. And it's going that way. It's the Z. So let's set this to, I don't know, 150. Go to fields and let's add it's a random field here. And go to random field. Let's go to remapping, sorry, the field itself, and use my favorite Luca noise and make it bigger. We have some undulation here, and maybe even make it a bit bigger. Now, what I'm going to do here is I want to create lines, but I want these lines to be quasi-procedural. So first of all, get an end side with two sides. That creates a straight line. And let me turn off the trees here. I'm going to take them all, put them all under a null. Select them all, put them under a null, and just hide them temporarily. I'm going to get my line. I'm going to scale it up, make it a big line. Turn off my plane. There you go. Here's my line. And I'm going to put it under a cloner. Let's put it under a cloner. And let's space it out a bit. So let's go in the Z, space it out, and add a few more of these. So basically, I don't want them in the X. I want them in the Z. There we go. Let's say these are the tree lines. Now, don't forget, you need subdivisions for the technique I'm going to do. So go to uniform and let's say 32 subdivisions. And now I'm going to grab this and move it up because I want to be able to see it together with this. And to make things a bit easier to see, I'm going to change my viewport, my display color. So this is nice and dark and maybe a bit blue. There you go. Because I want to be able to see what I'm doing now. Now, let's make this bigger so we can see the extent of what I'm doing here. And let's make sure this is big enough. That's my noise. And go to the cloner and connect it. Then add a null on top and use a projection to form a projector. And it's PPPPP projection. And the projection, by definition, goes in a certain direction. I want to turn it downwards. I'm projecting on the plane. And I want to make sure that I'm projecting on the plane. And you will see that the lines are following along, right? And you can even increase subdivisions to much larger number. There we go. And I just want this to be massive. Just grow. 100,000. There you go. That's what I want to do. And the lines are going to align properly. So this is procedural. You can change the number of lines. You can say, I want more, I want less, I want smaller gaps between them or larger gaps. But because this is a spline now, you can tell your cloner, because I'm going to get a cloner and clone these thingies on it. I'm going to make them multi-instance and set this to object. And in the object, I'm going to drag this. Now I've got my trees on the lines. And of course, I'm going to go, but here I need to do to change this one. Now you see some trees go up and down. Whee! Right. So let's fix that. Let's go 90 degrees. Although I don't need to do that, but because splines, it's ambiguous which way the splines are going. There are certain things that you could do here by defining a rail, make it target something. But I like to use another method because it seems a bit more fancy. Go to the effectors and use a target effector. Okay. Now, usually they will all look at the target effector. So you can do some sort of explosion here, although that shouldn't be the objective. But you can use field direction. And now this field direction, which currently is empty, but you can control it using sort of a linear field, and you can make these point in all sorts of different directions if you wish to do so. It just gives you a bit more control. You can play with your fields and do these things, but without a field, they will point upwards, regardless of what the orientation of the spline is. Now, having said that, um, why I like this method, because although now they are perfectly aligned, right? You go here, you will see that there are, if you're traveling along, you can see they're perfectly aligned. You can go and add a bit of randomness using a random effector. So go to your trees here and just say, I want a random effector, and I only want these to move in X and Y. So that way and this way. And you can offset them to bring them exactly so that you do have your trees oriented, but as much or as little as possible. And these are all procedural methods, so you can change at any given moment the number of trees, the scale. You can add a little component of a spline because this is a connect object. It's going to connect everything underneath. If I go to my top view here and say, well, I want to have another, I've got some watermelon trees here, put the spline here, and come on, there you go. So now I've got more trees there. So you can use these methods to populate things, and this spline here, depending on how many points it has, you can control how many trees it's going to have and stuff like that. Can you? Can you? No, because we are cloning on account. We're cloning 10 per segment. But there are ways to control it. You may go and make these add vertices, so you can go and put one vertex per tree. But in any case, this is sort of a scalable method of creating things that are quasi straight and aligned and all that. At the same time, we can go procedurally and add all sorts of non-uniformities, which makes things look much better. Okay, so yeah, I think that is what I have for now. Let me just go quickly through my little list of things I may have forgotten. So allow me to take a look at my monitor. And we did this, we did that, we did the other. Yes, so I'm going to give you some time if you have any questions. And if not, we are going to close the show. And next week, hopefully, we're going to have Jorg to show us his amazing stuff. No questions? Check up, 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 up. No. So it appears we don't have any more questions. I do hope you found this interesting, and the techniques I showed will allow you to populate your scenes and create all sorts of backgrounds and landscaping and so forth. If there are any particular things you would like to see how they can be done, don't forget to go to the link. Get the link. This one over here. And don't forget to go and ask your question. Ask your question. Go to that nice little form and ask your question. And we will get to it probably for the Ask the Trainer. So have a great afternoon, everyone. I need to find now the various end videos, and enjoy the rest of your week, and see you very soon in another show. Bye-bye, everyone. I need to find what closer. Oh, yeah, that's it. Bye.